Hello, my lovelies. Well, I thought I'd talk about this kick-off over news that's come out of school children in the UK being taught that Stonehenge was built by black people. This is from a book called Brilliant Black British History by Antinuke, who's Nigerian. Now, this is the blurb for the book. I'll get the blurb out the way. Did you know that the first humans in Britain were black? Migrating from other parts of the world about 12,000 years ago. They had dark skin and lived in Britain for 7,500 years before the first white Britons migrated there, about 6,000 years ago. People with brown skin brought farming and built Stonehenge. I'm squinting at that for a reason because really Anti-Nuke does not know British history all that well, archaeological British history. Now, when I read this, I'm thinking of has she actually got this idea from the DNA of Cheddar Man? Now, the oldest Britain we can find is about 10,000 years old. Cheddar Man is called, and they managed to get his DNA. Now, that's not 12,000 years ago. So she's got evidence that somehow black people were here, or the first people in Britain were black. She's gone 2,000 years earlier than actually the earliest Britain we know of and we have evidence of. Now, when they analysed his DNA, they said he had dark skin and blue eyes, not black. And it's telling in the blurb, it says the first, here I'll read the first line. Did you know that the first humans in Britain were black? Dark skinned is not the same as saying black. When I think of black, and everyone else I'd imagine thinks of black skin, you think African, you think Caribbean or Caribbean if you want to pronounce it the American way, or Somali. You know what I mean? That's what you think when you think black. You certainly don't think blue eyes. That's one thing you don't think of. Now, Cheddar Man, in all likelihood, wasn't black. He would have looked Middle Eastern. What we'd see as Middle Eastern nowadays. That's not black. And why this is concerning, really concerning, is that it stinks of people going in schools and putting across propaganda. And dare I say, black supremacist propaganda, trying to take the credit for everything that's good, not the bad things, the good things. Want to say the good things, not the bad things. So Stonehenge is a big monument, famous monument. Oh, we'll say that black people built that. Why not say, well, brown people that were Middle Eastern built it, if you want to put it that way. But again, don't forget Cheddar Man was roughly 4,000 years before Stonehenge started being built. So then you can more or less say that if he had been brown, by that time, the likelihood people were white in Britain. They were white by that time. But to change a narrative, archaeological narrative, to say black people were in Britain and actually created farming and brown people created farming, there's just no evidence for that. We know Cheddar Man was most probably, as I say, Middle Eastern looking. That's not black. But it's getting more and more disturbing. It's only from certain parts of black activists where it's starting to sound like they're doing exactly what they're accusing of white people doing to other races. They're trying to dominate and say we're the master race. Similar thing happened, and I pulled someone about this years ago. Similar thing happened with Cleopatra. There was this claim made that Cleopatra was black. Why? Because I think if I'm right, I'm trying to think back here. Her maternal grandmother, no one knows who she was, so for some reason that meant she was black. Now, why did they suddenly say black? Where did they get that from? Because they claimed that Cleopatra had frizzy hair. Afro, if you want to put it that way. But where that claim came from was Plutarch's Lives. Now, about the ancient Egyptians, ancient Romans, and all that, you get all your information from Plutarch's Lives. Shakespeare got his information from there. But when you actually read it, it didn't say she had frizzy hair. What it said was she frizzed her hair in the style of the times, the fashion. Now, if she had to frizz her hair by artificial means, I mean, that's a bit of indication she didn't have frizzy hair naturally. And she was Greek, we know. You can take for granted she was 100% Greek. She wasn't even Egyptian, she was Greek. And if you'd gone back then to a court, the Egyptian court, then you would have seen them all looking more or less like Greeks, not ancient Egyptians. But sis insists, no, no, we'll take. Look, we know there's evidence out there that especially Africa had an advanced culture. We know that. It's just that they didn't write down the history. But we know there was advanced cultures. And we've had, as the book says, it mentions a few names of black people that had an impact on British history. So there are black people that have done lots, and been very important. But trying to say, oh, we built Stonehenge and teaching that in schools is belittling, saying if you're white, you're nothing. That's the intention. It sounds like we're the master race, and we're going to teach this in your schools. We're the master race, and we're going to decolonialize British history. Well, if you want to forget that the British were colonists, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to say that ancient Britons were black and that everything that happened in England was the result of black people, or the black DNA in this country, go ahead, because some nasty things happened at the hands of the British. You can't deny that. We can't deny that. Some shameful things. But going in schools and teaching falsehoods like that is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But that's my views, my lovelies. Bye bye for now.